Stuff. I think you're aware about Straight Handball Talk, but just quickly to let you know that this show is about the extraordinary bonding power of handball and how it connects people forever. And one of those two people, it's us. I mean, we've created so many good memories on and off the court that uh, if it wasn't for this sport, we probably would have never met or crossed
Correct.
paths. So I think the beauty of the sport and what it gives me in that sense, the privilege of building these relationships is the most amazing reward that I get from the sport. So, thank you for joining me on Straight Handball Talk, and I can't wait to have a discussion with you about your career.
Sure.
So, tell me, I know you started playing handball in Germany.
Yes.
I don't know exactly what age was that, but before you moved your talents to Sydney and came to United States and won almost everything that can be conquered in North America, I want to know how the hell did you start playing handball and who actually fired up your passion to be a handball player?
Yeah, grew up in Germany, a little town called Groß Biberau. I don't know, maybe 1,500 people, uh, plenty of cows as well, um, and a pretty decent handball club. Um, TSG Groß Biberau doesn't exist in that iteration anymore, but when I was
Hmm.
growing up, my dad was closely involved in handball. At one point, he was the president of the club, and I must have been, I don't know, I'm guessing 4, 5, 6 years old. At which point, I benefited from being probably 3 minutes walking distance from, the cities to handball courts. So you get thrown in very quickly. And as you probably know from speaking to others in Germany, like, our school system is different. It's not so connected to sports. So the club was everything. And then on Sundays, we had our home games on Sundays. I remember, growing up, and 6 o'clock on a Sunday night, you'd go walk down and see your heroes play. It is, I think at a time where handball was played, obviously very different. I mean, I was in a kind of went through my youth teams in the 90s, and when you go see a game on Sunday that ends 16-12, and people and people think that's a high scoring game,
Yeah.
then you can imagine that game was played with a lot of passion in defense. And I had the benefit in being in teams where there was a lot of purpose on the teamwork. And I think the game has changed so much, but I think back then there was probably a little bit more pride taken in stopping a ball than maybe even scoring. So I think that led me to where I'm today, right? And I think that's how I got into handball, through my dad, and all of my friends played, of course, as well.
Well, I think that's also, I mean, whenever a family member plays handball, and obviously your dad being the president of the club and having all the resources available to you, it's a privilege comparing to things the way they are right now. But obviously, you are a well rounded player. And I'm not talking physically, that's me. Physically, I'm a well rounded person. But you end up playing pivot, obviously, because you were influenced, or you end up becoming this incredible defensive player while still being a great, well rounded player on the court. But that thing drove you a lot to be on the court. There's a different feeling when you play on defense and on offense. So obviously the influence comes from watching those games at an early age. Did your dad play?
My dad played, but he had an injury in his hand.
Hmm.
Plus, I don't think he was very good. He always says he left because he broke his thumb, but I think it was probably a talent issue as well. I've never seen him play. I've never seen a proof of this. I don't know. I think the year that shaped my viewpoint the most, when I was going through my youth teams, I mean, like we all did, right? And one way or another, we pride ourselves in scoring goals. So it was kind of a thing, right? And as I moved from a youth player to my a senior team in Course we just came back off a year where a number of Bundesliga players came into the team. So we played third divisions called Regionalliga, and we got promoted later to the second Bundesliga. But during that time, we had a couple of guys who came back from Großwallstadt, and at that time was a club called Niederwürzbach, I think, and it had a couple of players playing there who later won the world champs. But in any case, they took me kind of under the wing, but I wasn't strong enough and good enough to really make a big difference in attack. But in defense, I was. There's a couple of those guys, and coincidentally, one of them was a pivot, and he was kind of the number 3 in defense. And I knew I could make my way into the team that way quicker. And it's similar to today. Like you knew that they had your back, so you got a bit of confidence, and you're allowed to play for 5 minutes, and stop or celebrate as much as a goal. So I found my way through hard work into the team, and I think that's the way that's always played out. I don't know, it's probably not a great thing, and but I always took pride in people not wanting to play against me.
Well, that's good, because the guys next to you wanted to be next to you, so
that helps.
Yeah, that is a good feeling to be in. But I remember when you joined our first practice. I don't know if you remember. I want you to actually share that with me. You showed up at the 50th Street gym location, and you said, "Oh, I'm coming from Sydney." And at that time, I really thought you were Australian. It's the first experience, because you're speaking English with a little bit of Australian sound. So I was like, yes, we got an Australian, check mark, one of the 56 countries. But then, of course, you were German, and you knew how to play handball, and you had a great history, and we'll talk about it. But do you remember that first time you joined?
Yeah. I mean, I had this conversation just recently with a friend. I mean, as you said, handball is has been such a difference maker in my life and my personal relationships. I have gone through this twice. We get to Sydney, I'm sure, later as well. But I came to New York after 12 years living in Australia, and I didn't know anyone. I came here with work, and so I had 4 or 5 people that I knew at work, but these weren't friends. And I don't know. First of all, I was surprised there was only one handball club in New York, but I had experienced handball in smaller countries, and so when I walked in, you're always a little bit nervous. I remember I didn't have handball shoes; I just had running shoes, and that was a disaster. And the first thing the coach, Bini, did is like, okay, who is this guy? There were like 40 people there, and you put your first team together, and then kind of the second team and the third team, and I ended up somewhere with the second or third team, I guess. And then you just, you just want to show up well. And the thing that, impressed me is that, we walked back and walked to Mercury Bar afterwards.
Yeah.
And I remember going home and, telling Anita, look, I walked in there and didn't know anyone. And I think now it feels like I have 20, 30 friends. And that's what handball does, right? The shared history, for better or worse, and we can talk about that as well. All Europeans, how we've all grown up together. We knew probably 1 or 2 people in common, and so it didn't take long to build a very strong bond. And my best friends here in New York is you and our teammates, right? And that's something I would have never had without the sport. And I don't know whether I would have had that with another sport. We're all immigrants. We share something very deeply. And then of course these bonds have been tightened by being really cheap when we travel and sleep in the same beds together.
Right, we're not going to share this part. But no, like you said, honestly, I think we all have friendships from other situation and other sports. I mean, I always look at it like, yeah, we all play different sports and we all have different friendship from other sports, but there's nothing as close as bonding and as a connection through handball. I sometimes think about it really clearly. Like, how is it possible? Like the handball teammates that grow up together or spend more time together, they just, that connection never disappears and it always feels fresh. And no sport, even though I might be biased, has ever given me that aside from
Yeah.
handball. So that I'm so happy that this sport brought us together and will keep us together for a long, long time.
So why do you think that is?
Well, in personally, what I think it because it is literally a, 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 a way of living every day with people who you build trust, relationships, teamwork, responsibility, shared responsibility, humility. It's very, very important in handball because you know that you can be good, you can be great, but there is no chance, like in other sports, if you're in basketball, soccer, one great player can win you games. In handball, that is not the case. You need
Hmm.
every little piece to work in sync at all times. And even if that works, and sometimes you lose, then that bond of trusting each other, say, hey, we got this, we can do another one. And it just, I feel like other sports, you can always pass the ball to that great player and he'll take care of it. In handball, no, it's doesn't work that way. We all have to do our things, be humble with it, and then at the end of the day, just go on, be friends, and continue with our lives. So to me, it's
I agree.
critical.
I think I'm not sure if that plays into it, but the sport is not too big and it's not too professional. I mean, you showed with your podcast. I mean, everyone is accessible in one way and another, and no one has. Of course, we have handball stars, but there's no comparison to some of the other sports, and the distance between the base, the fan. I mean, reflecting on pretty much every country in Europe that plays handball, it's played in small towns and small halls. You can touch and feel and smell the game. I mean, it has. I mean, this is where America has maybe a huge promotional advantage and size advantage, but it's and in Germany football is very similar, but it hasn't lost the proximity between the players and even the levels, and it might. And because of what you described, it's of course there's super teams like Kiel. You can't get in there if you're not the best of the best. But I think the first and second Bundesliga in Germany or in France, there's players in there who can get there through hard work and being very good team players, as you said, versus just an incredible physical specimen, that can win a game on their own, and that comes through in the culture.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a part of the sport. The culture of the sport is that shared responsibility, that togetherness, and because sometimes I look at it like, okay, in US we obviously cherish and support stars. We want people to be the number one and talk about that person. But in handball, like it's hard to do that because it's not going to happen every game. Like you might have one good game and you might win a game, but throughout to be successful, you need every single person to work within that mindset and culture. So that's a part, unless the game changes to adapt the American ideas of creating stars. We have to understand and accept the culture of the sport the way it
Yeah,
is.
it's as you say, it's a weak link game versus a strong link game, and that makes it interesting. Uh, so if that is handball's superpower, right? The culture and the connectedness. How do you use that superpower to let more people, into the game? Because we have this incredible bond, this incredible experience, this these values. Not enough people have them, and not making this about a bigger thing, and talking about what goes on in society so much, but it brings people together. So how do we use this superpower for to make this all bigger and better?
But look, it's when it comes to creating a business model, obviously it's going to be about creating excitement, making the game sexy and interesting for the younger ones. But ultimately, you cannot lose the true values of this particular sport, which is like the the friendships that you create, the what you understand, what you get to understand about life in general, it prepares you actually also for workforce. And again, this is
Yeah.
your part of your living that you do every single day in corporations is, I mean, first of all, athletes are a great talent pool, and secondly, because they come from so many diverse backgrounds, that's another thing that is a huge advantage in corporation and within the team. So being able to show those things as something that is going to help you in the future of work or in your life, it's critical. I mean, those are the benefits that I see all of us handballers have gotten. I mean, I never see a handballer that's not actually happy or doing well for themselves in a way that they know how to be a part of this society and contribute to the maximum of their abilities. So that's a part. I don't know, how do you promote that? So like, hey, if you're a part of handball player, you're gonna have you're gonna
Hmm.
understand a life, and you're gonna fit in within all the choices you make better and faster than if you're just an individual star in one of the sports.
Yeah, it's interesting because the American system is set up so much differently, and it's geared towards a few people are able to play the sport at a very, 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 very high level after they've, it's a pyramid, right? After over a longer time, because if you make it in high school and you get to college in the few sports that America is so strong in, then it weeds out the folks that don't have the opportunity like we have in Europe
Yeah,
to play every weekend and get tested and continue with their resilience. I mean, of course, there's rec leagues in the US,
yeah,
but I think if I think about handball or football or many other sports in Germany, there's much more depth in longevity of being tested every weekend, being in that team every week and training in 2 or 3 times a week and building your resilience. And here it's this model, just, if you're on the top, it's fine. And if not, basically you become a fan.
yeah,
And that doesn't necessarily, I mean, it builds also culture, but it's a different culture.
yeah,
I don't know if that's, I haven't really thought about that, but that it makes any difference. But I do think the system is built up differently from the ground.
yeah.
And I don't think the system here will change. So in this context, is this something that can ever be a big sport, or can the value of what we just described ever come through here? I don't know.
Well, I know for a fact that if, of course, this is completely opposite from the way system is built. I would love to do what the European system has done or does in most of the parts is it's not pay per play like it's here, because youth sports are multi-billion dollar business. And in every category, I mean, I know paying for the kids, all these money just for them to be involved in some sport.
Yeah,
But imagine if handball decides here in US, say, okay, you actually don't have to pay to play handball, especially the youth one. Find sponsors to make sure that we create this environment that, one, we're teaching more than just the sport, obviously.
I think that's really important.
And that's a part where you sort of like bring them in. Imagine parents like, oh, I don't have to pay. Oh, I get to travel around the world with the kids. Oh, they get to see these different cultures, be a part of this diverse community. And in the meanwhile, some of them are going to be super talented and some of them are going to become great players. And those are easy to place them in Europe because, of course, European teams would love to have a really good American player be a part of the club. But it has to be to the point where we have to prepare a system that 99% of the people that come and play handball will stick with it forever because it will be a part of their life.
Yes.
And that would be critical in in developing something that it's very against the system in US. I mean,
Yeah.
you will destroy them. It's like, oh, you don't have to pay per player.
Yeah, I think that, and I mean, obviously, sports. Every other sport can argue it builds better people, it builds better values. I'm sure if well, it's a good example, American football. I mean, people are proud, and it's a team sport, and there's so much of that. But it does culminate in kind of a point where you probably have to stop. Plus, it doesn't, and that's we had a key point here in history, right? Where we have more insular nationalistic thinking, right? And some of the American sports lend itself to this. And handball is a truly global sport.
It is.
If you think about the Olympics, and I've had the opportunity to be, in Atlanta in 96, 96 I was. Yeah,
Yeah.
and watch handball, and people went nuts over it. I know it's an international audience coming to it, but it brings people together. It is global, and I think at this time, these are the values, at least for me, that I think are important. I've lived all over the world, and and being embedded in other cultures, nothing has got me to grow more. And handball can be a vehicle. So what you described of, how do I allow this to be accessible, i.e., free,
Yeah.
and then how do I allow for the people who want that to put their kids into a culture that shows them the world in the best way. And that's a magic unlock, right? That if built from the ground up can also make the world somehow better, make the world better through handball.
Yeah, hey, that's what the world's handball club mission is in a way. But
Exactly.
and you know very well from the work you do, where diversity is critical, especially these days. And actually, it's an advantage for many corporations. Like you come to our club, and you immediately feel like, holy cow! I mean, talk about diversity. Like, I mean, so many different countries, so many different cultures, so many languages, so many different upbringings. So when you join this club, I don't think we ever have a need to discuss about certain problems because we're all there working together. And through those differences, I think we were able to actually build the most successful club in the last few years. And we have
Yeah.
been all different. The way we played handball, the way we talked, the way we reacted, but we just figured out, okay, well, he's got this, she's got this. So we made it work. So
Yeah,
to
it puts you every time you play, it puts you in a pressure situation, and you build trust very quickly.
yeah,
Also, you're vulnerable because you fail together all the time as well, even if it's micro failures and missing a shot, and this builds trust. And you build a lot of empathy because of what you just said, where people have come from, what history they had, and that yet, we all come from different places, but we all have a very similar story. And you're like, oh, we look different. No. And we different age. And that's the other thing. Like this club has everyone from being a 16-year-old kid to, what are you now, 55?
You look at your jersey. You're 40, so you're I'm close to you.
Exactly. You're present. Where's
Yeah.
it?
Well,
Bini, best present.
yeah. Oh, it's gonna have to change soon. 41. Every
Exactly.
year you're gonna get one with a different number. Well, talking about trust and handball as a critical part of actually teaching you that. To me, I remember one of our early practices, and I think it was your first Lake Placid trip that you showed up. And so we at that time we really had a lot of really good guys, and you showed up, and we were doing these 4-on-4s in one side of the court, and you were playing defense, I was on offense. And something was, I mean, things were working out for us on offense during those drills, but you didn't like that outcome, and you decided in one of the plays to hit me really hard with both hands in my rib cage. And I remember very well because I tried not to show it, but I couldn't breathe. Like I couldn't even say something. I couldn't call a play or anything. I was like, but I kept going and kept moving. I said, okay, well, that's all right. So I was upset in my head, but I said, okay, he did what he had to do just to kind of rattle us up. And then I remember I chose to go right in front of you one-on-one. And all I had in mind, I was not going for anything else. All I had in mind is to go grab your arm and pull your arm to the point where you feel some pain, because you caused me tremendous pain in my rib cage. And I did. And then you were holding your arm, but we continued playing. So we continued playing back and forth, back and forth. We shook hands. It was perfect moment of bonding and trust that I don't think any other sport, or they do provide you this, but to me, that was a moment where we got to know each other, how far we will go to do certain things to achieve a goal. But that I remember
Exactly.
clearly. I don't
And
know.
I think I have the same story with Jola. I remember when the first time he came, what is it, around the world or whatever, he came in running in, our most, technically gifted player. And, it's training, and, he does his third lob over the head of the goalkeeper. And there's the point where if you knew, right, and you leave your mark. You don't have to do it often, and I think you felt very similar. And that's both a competitive spirit in the moment. And it's not the right thing to hit someone, right? But it's like, I'll let you know, you want to win, I want to win as much, and I want to be part of this team, and you're going to respect me for what I can bring to this. And it didn't take long, right, to do that, because as I said, we never talked about it, and I didn't need to, and it's just the way you can do this, and I think that's what makes a team, because what you can do, I can't do, and which brings us to today, where we actually swap in defense and attack.
Yeah, we're extending our life cycle to another
exactly
10 years.
No, that has been. I mean, these and look, I think you have contributed to a lot of those trust building moments, because Lake Placid is a great example where we take ourselves out of the day to day, and for 3 days we live in a professional environment. You eat and sleep together in a Olympic facility, and that's handball, because much of what we used to here in terms of facilities is not handball. And you start to lose some of that edge, and so that comes back when you're in a proper court, when you have your sticky on your shoe, and people get going.
Full court.
Exactly.
Yeah, look, to me those moments are really critical for myself, when it comes to understanding people, and especially how far can we go doing what we need to do to achieve any of our goals that we set our mind to. And I love those moments, and I love the moments. I love the intensity that you have always brought to practices, and forget about the games. We know that we all increase our sense of urgency really high, but to me it's very important practices. If we cannot be serious and cause pain to each other and push ourselves to the max in practices, how the hell are we going to do it during the games? So
exactly. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Exactly.
And that's the and not taking these things for granted. I mean, this is, I think, the difference I felt playing at never played professionally, but playing with pros. It was work, and it was, this wasn't a rec team, this was a professional team, and if you're not good enough, you're going to sit on the bench, and you have to prove yourself every time. And that is the same in training, because when you play, I play for your spot. I love you, but if you play the same position, I want your spot.
Look, hey, it increases the intensity, competitive intensity between teammates, and it has to happen. You must do that if people want to get better. But going back to your handball experience, you obviously played many years in Sydney. And you were one of our first guys to have actually played at the Super Globe in Doha, in Qatar. And I remember during one practice when you told me you played, I was so not jealous, but I was like, I've been trying to get us there for so long, and I just couldn't because there are too many, hurdles. But then you talked about the experience that you had with playing against the Kiel guys, and of course playing against the team that we played this last year. Tell me about how was your first experience there?
Yeah. Look, let me take even a step back. I mean, the Sydney moving to Australia in my early 20s and arriving there, it was 2002. It was actually after the Olympics in Australia. There was still obviously, like it will be here, there's a big build up towards the Olympics. They played a couple of World Cups. They got a lot of players actually from Eastern Europe, specifically from the Balkan, similar time when you came over. Very good players who competed, and they had a decent team there. Many of the players after the Olympics still kept going, yet you could see it was on the decline. It was a sport that didn't take advantage of the incredible interest from the public in Australia. Didn't have infrastructure built, and then missed a huge chance. And you hope that doesn't happen here, with the next Olympics. But then I joined the Sydney Uni Handball Club, and it was very, very similar. Like it was a bunch of Europeans, made very good friends, And there was a figure very similar to you who took real responsibility for the future of the club, and that's Pascal Winkler, Swiss national who's lived back in Germany now, and he had the vision to say we can compete at a much higher level. It probably maybe was a lesser competition, but we qualified as through Oceania the first time. I think in 2000 and might have been 2011. I went twice to the Super Globe, and the first time was with a kind of a mixed Australian team where we got ripped. We got completely slaughtered by everyone. We weren't prepared. And the second time around that I went was in 2012 with the Sydney Uni Handball Club. That's when we played against Kiel, for example, and it was our first team experience. It was incredible, both as a foundation for future growth for the club. Pascal did a fantastic job of always building a core in Australia, and then bringing in international players, 2 or 3, a couple of months beforehand into the country to train with us. And we came close in one game, yet you made the experience. It is a very, very, very different level. Even the teams that are unknown, have the ability to run you to the ground. That's one, your fitness and have a deep bench. But then, getting the opportunity to go against Kiel, and it was the year after they had the 0 loss or 0 point season.
0 or 68.
From everyone, Yisha, Alm, Palmerson, you name them. It was an incredible experience, and you're both in awe and you want to compete. I remember scoring a goal against Terry. I got lucky. It probably was blocked and it just dribbled into the corner. But these are moments
I'm
for
sure
me.
He remembers it.
I'm sure he does. He's still going to be angry about it. And hanging out with these guys in the hotel, and and making some friends, because that's the point. Everyone is so accessible. That was the thing. Like, no one made them feel special. I know that I had a problem with my ankle or something, and the Kiel physio team looked after me. I mean, it is just a community. So these were incredible experiences, and the Sydney team year had built on that. And then, as you know, they came to a point of winning a game a couple of years ago. So there's a future for the New York City Handball Club as well in this regard.
No, of course we should have won the first one this first time, but no, you know what? I'm still happy that we finished ahead of Sydney in our first. we have that over them.
Exactly, that would be an interesting game. I mean, I've always thought that at the kind of the peak of both teams, who would win? We have another player who played for both teams, right? Benjamin Brief. So it's a very similar feeling. So I've been very lucky in representing, I think, really 2 great clubs, who, while amateur clubs, have brought so much to the world. And what the Sydney club also has done is to build a group of everyone who represents them. Like, we have an open door policy. There's a Facebook group. Anyone who comes to New York, can basically get a stay at my place. When I travel anywhere, we have a map, and we can see where we are, and we bring people still together, or Pascal does, right? And so it's as you said, you will never forget these people.
Never. And it's funny that you mentioned this, because about Sydney competing in Oceania and always qualifying, and I couldn't get answers from anyone how to get to Super Globe, and nothing I tried was working at that time. So I tried another version. I was talking to the American Samoa Federation, and I was going to form a team, New York City Handball Club, go compete for that spot in Oceania, and it was almost going to happen. Minus the fact, when realized how much it cost to do the whole thing, was, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not going to happen.
We played some great tournaments, including in some of the islands. Where did we go? It wasn't Bora Bora, but it was literally where you fly in, and That's Tahiti,
Okay.
where you fly in and you just see all those amazing resorts, and then you drive from the airport and you think, oh my God, we'll stay somewhere. But of course, the locals live very different.
Yeah.
So we played in concrete, in an open space which had just a roof,
Yeah.
and these guys are tough,
Yeah.
right? And there's some proper handball being played. They have great talents. New Caledonia, I think, or other teams had a great French history of handball players, and it was amazing. And it's very similar. It brought people together on a non-professional level, and I'm still in contact with some of those folks. Unforgettable experiences in this regard.
So going back to well, talking about the Big Apple experience, the big city, big lights, big names. I mean, have you ever thought that you're gonna compete against those guys face to face?
No, that was again. I had to come to New York to play some of my heroes. I mean, the lineup that was represented there, many of them have been on the court here, right? I remember Fanyas playing against him, and it's like, okay, he's not going to get past me. It took him like a mini second, and I'm still running this direction. While he just easily went past me. When I think about that, I'll pull up that video when he dummied that big Russian guy in the Olympics.
And
Because
I talked to him about exactly that because I've tried
okay,
many times, and I pointed
about
out.
when he beat me.
No. He actually asked, "How are your ankles?" No, it's like I told him, like, "Oh, that was such a good moment." He said, "No, I've been practicing that for a long time. My coaches made me practice that all the time." So it was not just a accidental thing. He's been doing this for the rest of his since he played handball. So I was like, "Damn, I thought it was an accident."
But it's like it's these little moments. I literally remember something like that, or I think it was Lozano, who is
Yeah.
the left back who played for Kiel and Barcelona, and I remember defending him, and there was no one's being hit. But I remember I was like, how can I get the guy? And I remember that he was looking to dummy, and I just took one side, and he kind of ran into me, and it wasn't a charge, but it was just between me, him, and he smiled at me and said, "Oh, you got me there," and there was just nothing being said, and there was just no one else would have known. But when someone like that, just for milliseconds acknowledges that you
Yeah.
exist,
Yeah.
you have done something, you go like, yes, and it was a beautiful moment. And no other sport at that professional level would be able to do something like this. And Bini, no other guy. So this is big on to you. So the question just is, when are you going to do it again?
No, hopefully. Well, actually, there's discussions happening. So 2021, we're aiming for something. I don't know yet exactly, but the truth is they all want to come back, many of them, and even more, the ones who haven't been here, because
Yeah.
obviously with the help of Ljubov Ranjac, with the help of Christopher Montz, who works with the Rhein-Neckar Löwen, with, of course, Karl Gladek, who was involved with Hamburg at some point. I mean, every single player wanted to continue coming because one, they had a great time in New York City.
Yeah, we had a great time.
But secondly, they all realized that by them being here, they've seen the gradual improvement of the quality of the our game. And every year they would say, like, and especially the last year, they were shocked. They're like, "You guys really made us play a little bit seriously," which means we pushed them to a certain level that they had to do the right things. So I think it helped us a lot. To me personally, it really made us believe that, hey, we can play at this level. I mean, at this level with the time we spent on it. So I wanted to continue because it helps every single person in US. One, to see it, two, to try it.
It was a personally beautiful moment, and I was proud to bring people, friends and people from work who hadn't known the sport.
Yeah.
And without fail, people love it. I mean, I don't have to tell you this. So there's a big opportunity over the next, what is it, until LA, right? Opportunity to build up an energy in a culture, as you said, that makes it sustainable, because that is the question, right? Can the sport, sustain the little steps it makes? A lot of investment into it clearly now. Right? I've been listening to some of the other podcasts. Lots of people have ideas, and we have some amazing, people here who are at the helm now. So it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is. It hasn't. It's been the best time to be a handball hopeful in USA because few reasons. One, IHF has given wild cards to USA, both men and women, for 2025 World Championships in Croatia, 2027 World Championships in Germany, obviously leading to Olympics 2028. Um, what else has happened? Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of help from Forum Handball Club, which is placing players, talented players in top clubs, giving them opportunity to learn and also financially reward them. So it is a really good opportunity to do something, and hopefully it's an opportunity to do something that we can sustain and grow and help, hubs like us in California and Texas and Chicago to build more than just what we have. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, there's still 8 years to go to Olympics. And what happened with COVID right now, you just sort of say, like, what can happen next? So,
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just recently listening to a podcast, and oh my God, what is the goal? The game with a stick and a little net.
lacrosse.
Lacrosse, and lacrosse has its first professional league starting this year, but of course COVID hit, and so they were the first professional league, and that announced a tournament in the US. And I think they're playing this in August. And so the creativity that leader, that president, I guess, brought to it, to still persevere and do this because of the fact that it's a small sport, you could control it much better. And it will be interesting to see how. I mean, lacrosse obviously has a deep culture already in universities, and I think especially in the Northeast. But it would be interesting to see what these smaller sports can do, because it would be difficult to bring lots of people together. And so instead of saying this might hold us back, maybe there is a unique opportunity for handball because it is small and maybe more nimble. And so it's you want to see the opportunity in that situation for a sport like this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we're used to playing without fans, so it's nothing different. Maybe they'll start showing up now.
Exactly. We don't even need to play the fan music. We can do it without it.
Tell me, because we have to meet each other in an hour in a real place. What what are your favorite moments with New York City Handball Club?
My favorite tournament, hands down, was when we went up north to Canada and competed on foreign soil. There was a lot of pride attached to that tournament,
Big time.
and the team together in as we always do in small quarters. We have a special bond, a very professional handball attitude of doing the most in the court, but also the most after the games are played, and knowing that these teams in Canada absolutely wanted to do everything not to let us win. And we overcame adversity, including breaking your hand, and every game was a fight. And I was never prouder, like ever, to win something like then. And the way we celebrated and what we did as a team there, that's when I thought we had arrived as a team. I get goosebumps now. I mean, look, it's the champions of Canada. People could, you can have a laugh about it. I've never felt prouder of winning something. That was a seminal moment for me. And I also felt, for me personally, it was kind of this thing as like I have arrived with the team. As a real member of that core. And then the flip side to this is the best social moments with the team are the least professional handball moments. Is Flanders, our annual sports tournament, grass tournament. I mean, handball started as a outdoor sport on grass. That's where it began, and seeing the bonds, the fun that we have, while it is as I said, the least professional element, that comes back to what we started, which makes me proud as being part of a family. So These are the sporting achievement as well as the kind of personal friendships kind of level, and it has everything in between. So these are the moments I think I will remember most and cherish the most.
Well, both are historic events in one way or another. Obviously, Canada, we are the first American club to go to Canadian soil and win the championship. The way we did it, the hustle, the toughness, and the beating we got. But obviously, I remember the semifinal game against Alexis and the other team, and the last few seconds when you stepped up and did what that was a beautiful moment in regards to making sure that we are not going down. I know you guys want it, but we want it badly, and we'll do everything it takes to get that one. So I have it clear in my head, and I think that was a really critical moment for us to win the semifinals, and the finals was easier after that. It was the semifinals that was critical. Uh, the Flanders tournament, obviously, you mentioned it is the longest standing handball tournament in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
because the family that really ran handball in US, or they started they started the Pan American Team Handball Federation, is a Buning family, which are with a German
Okay.
descent. So it all began there many years ago, and it continues every year. And
So
there's
thanks to us.
yeah, yeah, thanks to us. Yeah. It is one of the best bonding experiences that you can have as a handball person. So those definitely are special, even for me, the best.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, every single one of them. It's like, to me, it's every single one of them until it's over, and then I'm like, okay, well, all right, we did it. Let's go to another one. What's the next
Yeah.
one? But it's very hard to pick and choose, because all of them had a story before we got to achieve something. I mean, the many of the struggles and many of the connections that I needed to bring to make it as good as we always are at the end, because it was never a worry for me for us to go and perform at high level, but to do that initially, you have to do the little things to get to that part. So to me, that is still the drive, to do the soil first before we get to the big part. I enjoy that part a lot. But obviously, last year you had a very busy life with your career, and very focused on that, which is going very well. What do you think about this upcoming season? How's your schedule looking like with handball?
I You tell me what the upcoming season looks like, and I'll tell you how much I'm there.
I
There
don't know that.
is something that I do want to go back to, and that's in the gym.
Yeah.
When I'm here, it's kind of my priority, and I do think there is going to be a swan song for all of us before you turn 54. I think it is. We'll have to win another big one.
Last dance.
The Yeah, what I like us to think about as a team is that we hand it over to someone
Yes.
in inverted commas. I mean, there ought to be a place left behind that's better. And while I think we have a couple of more years, it's about building, this club in the future and still making it better. So that's I think my involvement is both on the sporting end and how we do that. So whenever I have time, I'm all in, mate.
Okay, good, good. So we start tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. If you haven't opened your emails, by the way. Yeah, it's true. I'm not joking.
You know, I'm busy tomorrow.
It's Sunday, day off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's as you know, my family lives here, and my in-laws in New Jersey, and we go into Europe starting Wednesday for a month, and so we're gonna say goodbye for a month, and so I have to miss that training,
No.
unfortunately, Vinny.
Yeah, I know. I get that part. All right. I'm going to ask you one more
Sure.
question. And that question is, can you tell me, tell us all, the impact the sport of handball has had in your life and career?
Yeah. I think we touched on so many of those things. It made me incredible competitive and allowed me to deal with uh, losses in a way that my whole spirit and thinking what helps me in my career now, it's not about being kind of good, but it's about getting better, because you lose. You've been put under pressure every time. You build resiliency, and I think that that ability of of being put under pressure helped me in what my career effectively is around, sales, growth, and leading companies. And that was incredible. I think the other thing that came with age is stepping up as a leader. The you go through your 20s, and that's kind of, while I played in Australia. You move from being a strong individual contributor, defining yourself how many goals you score or what you can do individually. When your powers wane, and you see that that's not necessarily the only thing how you can bring value to your team, you see how important leadership is, and making others better. That coincided for me at work very similarly, where I went from an individual contributor role where I did really well to my first management and then leadership role, where the definition of getting better wasn't just about focusing on myself. So where my 20th were maybe more focused inward about, hey, how to make Christoph better, it then coincided with with my handball as well, like how do I make others better. And that was, I think, the way I unlocked a lot of my success work as well. How do I find a platform, how to where I can help others become better, and help them uncover, light up, and ignite their potential. And that I don't think I would have had that realization if I had not also experienced that in a team sport like handball.
Yeah. Well, that's a phenomenal answer, and I completely agree with you on everything you said. It's a great way to learn how to become a better person, a better leader, and make better choices moving forward. Christoph, thank you for your time. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Benny.
It's always fun to talk to you about anything, but even though this is a different platform, different approach, I loved it. So thank you.
No, thank you. You're making a big difference, and thanks for what you have done for many folks, including myself. As you said, I would not only not know you, but some of my best friends and some of my best memories. And you doing amazing work. So continue doing that, and good luck with everything, including the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, Christoph. I'll see you in an
Okay.
hour.
All right, buddy.